Evan Walker had lived on the far side of the valley for most of his life. People in town often said he was the kind of man who spoke only when needed and worked from sunrise to sunset without complaint. His ranch sat between long stretches of grassland and pine trees that whispered whenever the wind passed through. Evan liked that silence. He liked knowing every fence post, every trail, and every sound the land made. It was the only place where he felt in control. But on a warm late afternoon, that quiet life changed. Evan was driving his wagon back from town after collecting feed bags and a few tools he needed for repairing the east fence. The sun was setting behind the hills, leaving a soft orange glow across the fields. The air felt calm, almost sleepy. He was humming an old tune when he suddenly heard a strange noise like something. Rattling between the trees to his right, his horses slowed on their own. Evan frowned and looked toward the forest line. It was unusual for anything to move at this hour. Most animals were settling down for the night. He listened carefully. There it was again, a sharp, quick rattle, followed by the sound of someone stumbling. Evan stepped down from the wagon. "Hello?" he called out, his voice steady. No answer. He took a few cautious steps toward the sound, brushing branches aside as he walked deeper. After a short moment, he spotted someone sitting against a broken tree trunk. It was a woman, tired, dusty, and breathing hard. Her dark hair was tangled, and she wore a simple, earth-colored dress. A shawl slipped from her shoulder, revealing her left wrist. On it was a worn leather strap that looked tightly tied, almost painfully so. When she noticed Evan, she tried to sit up straighter. "Please," she said quickly, her voice shaky, "don't come too close." Evan raised his hand slightly to show he meant no harm. "You look hurt. Do you need help?" "No," she said breathlessly. Yes. But don't touch this." She held up her wrist with the strap. "Don't take it off. Not ever." Evan stared at the strap. It looked old, cracked, and too tight. The skin around it was red as if she had pulled at it many times. Something about her voice made him pause. There was fear in it, not anger. "All right," he said gently. "I won't touch it." She seemed to relax a little. Evan looked around. She was alone, and there were no signs of a camp or wagon nearby. "My name is Evan," he said. "I can take you to my ranch." "You look exhausted." She hesitated, scanning the trees as if expecting someone to appear. "I don't want to cause trouble." "You won't," Evan replied simply. "You need rest. And you're too far from town to walk safely." After a long moment, she nodded. "My name is Mara." Evan helped her stand, careful not to touch her wrist. Mara limped slightly, but kept moving. When they reached his wagon, she sat quietly while he guided the horses toward the ranch. The sky grew darker, stars appearing one by one. Mara stayed silent, her eyes watching the road ahead. Evan noticed the way she kept her wrist close to her chest as if guarding it. When they arrived at the ranch, Evan helped her down. "You can rest inside," he said. "I'll make something simple for supper." Mara followed him, moving carefully. The ranch house was modest but warm. Wooden walls, a stone fireplace, and shelves filled with tools and small handmade decorations. Evan brought her a bowl of warm stew and a cup of water. "Thank you," she whispered. As she ate, Evan studied her quietly. She looked young but worn from long travel. Her eyes were sharp, observant, filled with something he couldn't understand, fear mixed with uncertainty. After finishing the stew, Mara asked, "Can I stay just for tonight?" "I'll leave early in the morning. You can stay as long as you need," Evan replied. She shook her head. "No, I shouldn't stay." "It isn't safe. For you or for me?" he asked. Mara looked at the strap on her wrist. "Both," she said softly. Evan didn't push for answers. He respected people's silence, just as he liked them to respect his. But that night, when he blew out the lamps and headed to his room, he had a feeling that her warning wasn't just fear. It was something she believed deeply. The night was quiet, but only for a short while. Around midnight, Evan woke to the sound of horses stirring in the barn. They usually slept peacefully through the night. Curious and slightly uneasy, he put on his boots, grabbed a lantern, and stepped outside. The air was cool, carrying a faint breeze. The sky was clear, and the moonlight made the ranch yard glow faintly. Evan walked toward the barn. The horses were restless, shifting and snorting. "What's got into you, fellas?" Evan murmured. He checked the stalls but found nothing unusual. No predators. No broken planks. Everything was normal except the uneasy feeling in the air. When he stepped out of the barn, he heard a soft thud. It came from the porch. Evan walked toward the house, lantern raised. Nothing moved. Yet he could sense something like someone had just been there. Inside, Mara sat on the edge of her bed, her shawl wrapped tightly around her shoulders. She looked pale. "Did you hear something?" Evan asked. She nodded slowly. "It's here." "What is?" Mara shook her head, fear flooding her eyes. "I told you it isn't safe." "I should have kept going." Evan sat on a nearby chair. "You're safe here. Whatever is bothering you, it won't get past me." Her gaze dropped to her wrist. She touched the strap gently, almost like it was the only thing keeping her steady. "This belonged to my father," she whispered. "He always said it protected us. After he passed, I kept it with me. It was the only thing that made me feel safe." Evan nodded, understanding a little better. So the warning. It wasn't about danger from the strap. It was about what you feel when it's gone. Mara looked down. "I know it sounds foolish." "Doesn't," he replied softly. "Everyone holds on to something." Mara seemed surprised by his calmness. No judgment. No questions. Just reassurance. Still, she seemed unsettled. "I heard footsteps outside," she said. "I know I did." Evan didn't deny it. He didn't want to lie. "I heard something too. But maybe it was just animals." Mara shook her head. "No, it's been following me for days. I don't know who they are, but I know they want to find me." Evan leaned forward. "Why?" Mara hesitated. "I'll tell you." "Tomorrow. I promise." Her voice was tired, like she had been carrying her story alone for too long. Evan nodded. "Rest, then. We'll talk in the morning." Before he left the room, Mara spoke again. "Evan, if anything happens tonight, don't take this off." She held up her wrist. "Please, promise me." Evan paused. He didn't know why the warning felt heavier this time. Something in her tone carried real fear. "I promise," he said quietly. She breathed out slowly and lay down. The night passed, but sleep didn't come easily to Evan. He kept waking to small sounds, the wind brushing the window, the boards creaking, the soft movement of horses. He felt alert, as if something unseen was watching the ranch. At dawn, Evan stepped outside. The sky was pink and gentle, the kind of morning that usually made him feel grateful. But today, his eyes landed on something unusual. Footprints, fresh and leading toward the house. He knelt and examined them. They didn't belong to him, and they weren't Mara's. Someone had come close to the porch during the night. Evan's jaw tightened. Someone had been watching. He walked back inside. Mara was already awake, sitting at the table with her hands wrapped around a warm mug. She looked tired but calmer. "Morning," Evan said. She nodded, her eyes drifting to his face. "You found something outside." He didn't ask how she knew. "Footprints." Her shoulders sank. "Then they found me." Yvonne pulled out a chair and sat. "You need to tell me the truth now. I can't help you if I don't know what's going on." Mara swallowed hard. "I will, but first, please remember your promise." Evan looked at the strap on her wrist. "I remember..."
Oh.
But as he studied the strap again, how tight it was, how it cut into her skin, something inside him whispered that the strap wasn't protecting her, it was hurting her. And though he had promised not to remove it, he already felt a quiet, growing decision deep inside. No matter what Mara believed, no matter what she feared, he would not let her suffer because of a strap. He would help her even if he had to break the promise, and even if she didn't understand yet. Morning light slowly filled the ranch kitchen as Evan and Mara sat across from each other. The warm smell of tea lingered between them, but neither of them touched their cups. Mara's hands trembled slightly around the mug, and Evan couldn't help but notice how the leather strap on her wrist dug deeper into her skin every time she tightened her grip. She took a slow breath, then finally spoke. "I didn't want to bring my trouble to your door," she said softly, "but I think I lost my chance to run. They are close now." Evan leaned forward. His voice remained calm but firm. "Tell me who they are." Mara lowered her eyes. "A group of men who passed through my village a few weeks ago. They were asking strange questions. They stayed only one night, but during that time they did something. Something I stumbled across by accident. I wasn't supposed to see it. What did you see?" Evan asked. Mara hesitated again. "I saw them trading things they shouldn't have. Something dangerous. I don't know exactly what, but they noticed me before I could hide. They followed me from one town to another. I've been running ever since." She lifted her wrist. "This strap. It belonged to my father. He told me it would keep me strong during fear. I know it has no real power, but when I wear it, I feel like he's still protecting me." Evan understood now. The strap was not magic. It was memory. It was comfort. It was the only thing she thought she still had from her old life. But the strap was also hurting her, cutting her skin deeper each day. Fear had made her cling to it even when it caused her pain. "And last night?" Evan asked gently. "You think one of those men came near the porch?" Mara nodded. "They've been behind me since the village. They always come at night. They watch, then leave, like they are waiting for the right moment." Evan studied her face. He saw exhaustion, fear, and the weight of days running alone. He hated seeing someone suffer like this, especially under his roof. "You're not alone anymore," he said quietly. "You're safe here." Mara's eyes softened, but didn't fully relax. "I want to believe that." "You can," Evan said. But in the back of his mind, something was changing. Something steady, protective, and quietly determined. He would fix this. Whatever was troubling her. Whoever was chasing her, he just needed more answers. After breakfast, Evan decided to check the ranch boundaries. "Stay inside for now," he told Mara. "If you hear anything, call for me." She nodded nervously. Evan stepped out and began walking the yard. He examined the dusty footprints again, fresh, clear, and leading toward the woods. The prints were uneven, like someone was walking fast or stumbling. He followed them for a short distance before the trail, disappeared around the creek. He narrowed his eyes. Whoever had been here didn't want to be found. But they were bold enough to come near the house. That alone made Evan uneasy. He returned to the house around noon. He found Mara cleaning the small table, her movements slow but purposeful. She looked up quickly when he entered. "Did you see anything?" she asked. "Not enough to worry you," Evan replied, not wanting to increase her fear. "But I'll stay alert, and you should rest." Mara nodded and sat on a chair. Evan noticed her rubbing her wrist again. He couldn't help asking, "Does it hurt?" She froze. "I'm used to it. That doesn't answer the question." Mara didn't look at him. "It burns sometimes." Evan sighed. "Mara, that strap is too tight. It's hurting you." Her voice shook. "I can't take it off. Not now. Not while they're near." Evan didn't argue further, at least not yet. He didn't want her to panic. But he couldn't stop thinking about the deep cuts on her skin. Even if the strap comforted her emotionally, it was harming her physically. He decided he would wait until the right moment to do something about it. The afternoon passed quietly, but there was tension in the air, like a storm waiting to break. Evan and Mara did light chores together. He showed her how to feed the chickens and how to refill the water trough. She moved carefully, looking over her shoulder every now and then. "You don't have to keep checking the woods," Evan said gently. "I can't help it," she replied. "I'm afraid they will appear without warning. If they do, they'll deal with me first," he said plainly. Mara looked at him with wide eyes. "Why would you risk yourself for me?" "You barely know me," Evan shrugged softly. "Sometimes knowing someone's fear is enough to know they need help." Mara didn't answer, but her expression softened. They were in the barn when Mara suddenly gasped and pulled her hand back. Evan turned quickly. "What happened?" "I scraped my wrist against the doorframe," she said. Wincing, Evan moved closer and carefully inspected her wrist without touching it. A thin line of blood had appeared under the strap. It was cutting deeper now. "This isn't right," Evan said firmly. "You can't keep wearing that." Mara's breathing grew fast. "No, please, don't say that. If I take it off, I'll feel unprotected. I know it sounds strange, but it's the truth." He looked at her with patience. "I'm not judging you, but it's hurting you. I'd rather feel pain than fear," she said quietly. Evan felt something inside him shift against something protective. Fear shouldn't be the thing. Guiding her, when evening approached, Mara stayed closer to the house. She seemed anxious, watching the windows as the sky darkened. Evan cooked a simple supper. He tried to keep the atmosphere calm, but Mara barely ate. Her hands shook whenever she lifted the spoon. "I can't stop thinking about last night," she said. "If they came once, they might return." "They won't get past me," Evan replied simply. Mara frowned. "You talk like you're not afraid of anything." Evan shook his head. "Everyone is afraid of something. Mine is letting someone in danger stay alone." Mara lowered her eyes. "I've been alone for weeks." "Well," Evan said, "you're not alone anymore." For a moment, she looked like she might cry, but she held herself together. After supper, Evan lit a lantern and placed it near the front window. He kept his rifle by the doorknob to use unless absolutely needed, but to feel prepared. Mara sat on the couch, hugging her knees. The ranch was quiet except for crickets and the distant rustle of the wind. Then, a sudden thump outside. Mara stiffened instantly. "They're here." Evan placed a hand on her shoulder. "Stay inside." He stepped out onto the porch with the lantern. The yard was dim, lit only by moonlight. The horses inside the barn whinnied nervously. There, movement behind the water barrels. Evan held his lantern higher. But as he approached, the movement stopped. And when he walked around the barrels, nothing was there. No person. No animal. Still, the uneasy feeling only grew. He remained outside for several more minutes, scanning the land. But silence returned. Finally, he walked back inside. Mara sat frozen. "What did you see?" "Not enough to worry," Evan said softly. "But enough that I think we should talk." She swallowed nervously. Evan sat across from her. "Mara, the strap. Let me see it." Her face went pale. "No, you promised." "I promised because I didn't understand everything then," Evan said gently. "Now I do. And I can see it's hurting you more than helping you." She hugged her wrist close to her chest. "If I take it off, I'll fall apart." Evan shook his head. "No, you are stronger than you think. You've survived days on the road, nights alone, and fear that would break most people. The strap didn't save you." "You did." Mara looked like she was fighting tears. "I don't know if I can let go. It's the only thing for my father. The only thing that feels like him." Evan's voice softened. "Taking it off doesn't take him away. He lives in your strength, not in a piece of leather that's hurting you." She still hesitated. Then suddenly she grimaced, pain flashing across her face. She had pulled the strap too tight again without noticing. Her wrists throbbed visibly. Evan couldn't stand it anymore. "Mara," he said firmly, "you need help. Let me help you." "I can't," but she didn't finish the sentence. Her eyes fluttered. Her breathing slowed. She leaned back, dizzy from exhaustion and the pressure on her wrist. Evan caught her before she slipped to the floor. He carried her gently to the couch. She whispered faintly, "Don't. Take it off." But her voice faded before she finished the sentence. Evan looked at her wrist red, swollen and trembling. He knew she was afraid, but he also knew she was suffering. A decision settled in his heart, calm, steady, unshakable. He reached for the strap. Slowly, carefully, even though she had warned him. Even though she had begged him not to, he untied the first knot. Her hand twitched, but she didn't wake up. He untied the second knot. The strap loosened. Revealing deep marks in her skin, he removed it completely and placed it gently on the table beside her. For a moment, Mara seemed to breathe easier, but then her eyes burst open. "What did you do?" she whispered, terrified. "Mara, Evan said quietly. I helped you. She looked toward the window, and her face turned white. Headlights appeared far down the dirt road. The sudden light on the distant road froze the room. Mara sat upright on the couch, her breath trembling as she stared through the window. Evan stepped closer, narrowing his eyes as the headlights slowly moved toward the ranch gate. Her voice came as a whisper. Evan, they found me? He placed a steady hand on her shoulder. Stay calm. You're safe here. But Mara shook her head fiercely. No, you don't understand. They won't stop. They've been waiting for a chance like this. I shouldn't have stayed. I shouldn't have brought this to you. Evan kneeled beside her, looking her straight in the eyes. You didn't bring trouble here? Trouble followed you. And I won't let it harm you, Evan. She gripped his sleeve tightly. You took the strap off. I wasn't ready. I feel exposed. He raised the soft leather strip from the table. This didn't protect you, Mara. You did. And now you have me with you. Her breathing slowed a little, but she still shook from fear. Evan moved to the window and watched as the vehicle approached slowly, as if the driver was searching for something in the dark. A dust cloud swirled behind it, glowing in the headlights. Stay inside, he said firmly. I'll handle this, Mara's voice cracked. Promise me you won't let them take me. Promise, Evan answered, without hesitation. Evan stepped outside, closing the door behind him. The night air was cool, settling heavily over the ranch. The headlights grew brighter until the vehicle, a dusty old truck, rolled to a stop near the gate. Two men stepped out. Both wore patched jackets, dusty boots, and expressions that meant trouble. Evening, Foon called out, keeping his tone calm but firm. The taller man squinted toward him. We're looking for someone. Might have passed this way. Why are you searching at night? Evan asked. That's our business, the second man replied roughly. We heard she came through here. Evan remained silent for a moment, then said, Nobody came here. The first man stepped closer, flashlight in hand. You sure about that, rancher? Very sure, Evan replied steadily. Now I suggest you turn around and leave. This land isn't for wandering. The two men exchanged a look. They didn't believe him. Mind if we check for ourselves? The shorter man asked. Yes, Evan answered plainly. I mind. The taller man's expression hardened. Listen, we're not here to cause trouble. Just looking for someone who doesn't belong on these roads. Could save us all time if you talk. Evan took a slow breath. Nobody's here. Move on. Behind him, the porch light glowed faintly. Inside the house, he knew Mara was watching, afraid but trusting him. That thought strengthened him even more. The men didn't move. Finally, the taller one said, she's been running for weeks. We just want to bring her back. Evan felt something cold settle in his chest. She's not going anywhere with you. The flashlight beam moved across Evan's face, then toward the house. You hiding something? The shorter man asked. No, Evan said. But I am telling you to leave. The taller man clicked his tongue. This doesn't have to get messy, rancher. Evan didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. It won't, because you're leaving. The men stepped back slightly, surprised by his stillness. Evan wasn't threatening them. He was simply unmovably like the land he lived on. They whispered to each other, glanced at the house again, then the taller man sighed. All right. But if we find out you're lying, you won't, Evan cut in. The men climbed back into their truck. But instead of turning around, they drove only a short distance down the road and parked on the far ridge, leaving their headlights off. They weren't gone. They were waiting. Evan walked back inside, locking the door behind him. Mara rushed to him. What happened? Are they leaving? They're not leaving, he said calmly. But they won't step inside the ranch either. She covered her face with her hands. This is all my fault. If they stay out there all night, what will you do? Evan rested a hand on her shoulder. I'll make sure you're safe. That's what I'll do. Mara looked at him, trembling. Why? Why are you doing all this for me? Because you needed someone to stand by you, Evan replied. And you came to my land. That means you're under my care. Her eyes softened with something between gratitude and disbelief. Nobody has protected me in a long time. Evan nodded toward the couch. Rest, I'll keep watch. But she didn't sit. You can't stay awake all night. I can, he replied simply. She looked torn tired, but unwilling to let him face everything alone. I don't want you to fight. I didn't say anything about fighting, Evan replied. I said I'd protect you. He checked the windows and stepped onto the porch again. The truck on the ridge remained dark and unmoving. But Evan knew they were inside watching. Mara joined him quietly. Evan, if they take me, I don't know what will happen. I don't want you to risk anything. You're not going anywhere with them, he replied. How can you be so sure? She asked softly. Evan's voice was low and steady. Because I'll act before anything happens. She didn't fully understand what he meant, but something in his certainty steadied her. Hours passed. Moonlight swept slowly across the sky. Evan remained awake, sometimes standing by the window, sometimes sitting in the rocking chair near the door. Mara drifted in and out of sleep on the couch, waking whenever she heard a noise. Around early dawn, just as the sky began to change color, Evan stood up suddenly. Mara sat upright. What is it? They're moving, he said. She rushed to the window. The truck had turned on its engine again. It started rolling down the slope, toward the ranch slow, steady, determined. Evan, she whispered, panic rising. He grabbed his hat and stepped outside. Mara followed him to the porch. Stay inside, he said. I don't want you facing them alone. She pleaded. I won't be alone, he replied gently. You're here. She stopped in her tracks. The truck skidded to a halt near the barn. The two men stepped out again, this time with more confidence. As if convinced Mara was inside the house, Evan walked toward them calmly. Stopping several paces away, It's a new morning, the taller man said. Give us the girl. No trouble. Evan's jaw tightened. She isn't going anywhere with you? The man smirked. Rancher, you don't even know what you're dealing with. No, Evan replied. But I know she's afraid of you. And that's enough. The shorter man stepped forward. Move aside. Evan stepped in front of the path that led to the house. No, the taller man exhaled. You're making this difficult. You're the ones who came here, Evan said. Mara watched from the porch, worried. Clutching her wrist, the one that no longer had the tight strap. She looked fragile but strangely lighter without it. As if her hand could breathe again, the men tried stepping past Evan again, but Evan moved with a quiet, unsettling steadiness blocking their way, guiding them backward without laying a hand on them, using only the firm pressure of his presence and the land he knew well. You don't want to do this, Evan warned. The shorter man snapped, We just want her. Not happening, Evan replied. The taller man finally groaned. Fine, you win for today, but we'll be back. And when we are, you won't find her here, Evan said. The men hesitated. For the first time, uncertainty crossed their faces. Evan didn't blink. Now leave. Something in his tone made them step back. Maybe it was his calm strength. Maybe it was the fact he stood there without fear. Maybe it was simply that the ranch seemed to rise behind him, as if the land itself supported him. They stepped into their truck, muttered among themselves, and finally drove away. It's time for good. Dust rose behind the vehicle until it disappeared from sight completely. Silence followed. Evan walked back toward the porch. Mara stood there, tears in her eyes. You acted, just like you said you would. He nodded quietly. You didn't let them take me? She whispered. No, he said. I never would. She stepped closer to him, hands trembling not from fear now, but from relief. Evan, you saved me. I kept my promise, he replied. She looked at her wrist. For the first time, she didn't reach for the missing strap. She didn't search for it. She didn't cling to it. She simply looked at Evan. I don't need the strap anymore, she said softly. Not when someone like you is here, Evan exhaled, relieved. Good, that means you're healing. She smiled, gently small, shy, but full of warmth. Can I stay? Not just for safety, but because I want to? Evan nodded. As long as you want. This ranch has enough room for both of us. She stepped closer, her voice quiet. I finally feel safe. Evan looked toward the hills where the truck had vanished. Then he looked at Mara, tired, brave, and slowly finding peace. "You are safe," he said. And for the first time since she had arrived, Mara believed it.